Hi everyone. Today I'm sitting here with Georges Abi-Heila. That was a super difficult name to pronounce. He is the head of growth for the high growth company Too Good To Go in France, a mobile marketplace that saves millions of meals from the bin by allowing people to buy unsold food. Before Too Good To Go, he was the head of growth and customer success at, I would say, the famous company Station. He says that it's maybe not that famous, but I was a user and I was a fan. George, please say hi to everyone.
Hey, everybody. Nice to meet you all.
So, George, thank you so much for being here on the show today. I can see that people are slowly tuning in. We have 6 people live right now. And for everybody who is watching live, please feel free to add any questions in the live chat here. We'll be happy to answer. And I know that George, he will be very honest with his answers today in relation to how he works with growth marketing at Too Good To Go in France. So, George, we'll kick
really
the show off. Thank you. So we'll kick the show off today by talking a little bit about, so when you say head of growth in France for Too Good To Go, what is kind of like the daily activities that you are doing?
Yeah. So basically, we're a mobile marketplace. So we put in contact food stores that want to basically sell their leftovers, because a lot of food stores like supermarket, hotels, groceries, etc., they have a certain percentage of leftovers every day, but it's still good food, and it's food that shouldn't be thrown away or wasted. So we're trying to reduce this percentage of waste. So we put in contact those food stores with like people who want to buy meals at a discounted price, because it was gonna be wasted anyway. So basically, in this marketplace, our bottleneck is food stores. So in a lot of countries, we have a lot of app users. So we have a lot of people that want to buy those cheap meals, but we don't have enough supply. We don't have enough food stores. So basically, my main area of focus for the moment is like bringing as many qualified leads to the sales team. So basically, bringing as many food stores to our website and making them convert, so making them fill a certain subscription form so that they are added to our platform.
Okay,
and
so
this is
so what we're talking about here is that you are really responsible for, you can say, the supply and demand of either the suppliers of the food that can be bought, and of course also you can say the demand, which is the consumers or the users who want to buy this food cheaply, because that's the whole point about it, and of course to reduce food waste. So, I mean, George, one of the questions that I will have here, and I think it's general for all marketplaces: when do you focus on demand and when do you focus on supply? I mean, can you focus on both?
Yeah, so basically we open quite a lot of new countries every year, like 1, 2, 3, etc. We're opening the United States soon. So basically, the way we do it is that you have to secure a certain amount of supply before like launching the platform. So basically, it's kind of this egg and chicken problem, which is at the beginning you obviously have to do both. But at the very, very, very beginning, like since we know that the bottleneck is going to be supply, we try to go and meet a lot of food stores. We try to go and talk to them, etc., and secure a certain amount of food stores on our platform before we publicly launch. Okay. So in our chicken and egg problem, we basically kind of focus on supply before demand, and then we do both. And then eventually, once a country matures, supply is going to be the bottleneck in our case.
Yeah. Okay. So what you're basically saying is that before you launch into a market, let's say France, just to come up with an example, then what you are doing first is that you have the app, and you are kind of presenting this business case for the suppliers. And in this case, the suppliers would be bakeries and restaurants and I don't know, all these kind of food suppliers out there. And what you basically say is that, hey, we are soon launching in this particular country. In other markets, we have seen this amount of growth and this amount of return on investment for people or companies in your situation. And if you wanna, you can say be on the list of suppliers. Then when we launch, we will promote you to a lot of supply out there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, we do a lot of outbound marketing at the beginning before opening in a certain country. So we basically try to build a team. So we hire a country manager. Then this country manager hires his all the head offs, like head of sales, head of marketing, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And then once we have this founding team, the first hires are going to be salespeople, and those salespeople are going to do a lot of outbound actions to get stores. So basically, a lot of field work. So they're going to go on the streets and try to sign stores. They're going to do a lot of calls, and once we have secure this certain threshold of supply, then we publicly launch the app.
Okay. And what about then? So let's say now you have been launched in France. For how long have you been in France?
In France, it's like 3 or 4 years. We launched in 2016.
Okay, so you've been in France for quite a while. So you can say in the beginning you had all of this, you can say all of this supply out there, and you captured that by doing outbound. But and then of course you had, you can say, the demand part. So what did you do in regards to the demand part when you were first launching?
Actually, I can't like answer precisely because I wasn't there. I've been in Too Good To Go for only a year, so
Yeah.
I didn't really look at what they did before. But I can give you my like insights or my gut feeling, but I'm not sure that it's going to be exact. So I'm going to be honest about it. But what I
That's
would
fine.
do if I'll open a new country, it's basically in France. I know that we had a lot of press, a lot of media mentions, and this like for a lot of new startups that begin, this is one of the most like organic, the most efficient organic acquisition lever that you can have. It's
Yeah.
basically media mentions. And I know that, for example, in France, we tick kind of all the hype boxes. Like the founding person is like a woman. She's called Lucy. She's like very young. She's under 30 years. She works in a startup. She created a startup that saves food and that prevents food from being wasted. So basically, we tick all these 4 hype boxes like young
Yeah.
founder, woman founder, against food waste and startup. So basically, we have this constant stream of like media mentions that helped us a lot kickstart our application, especially on the B2C side, so on the demand side.
Yeah.
Like when you have a national TV interview, when you have an article in a really important journal,
Yeah.
this like amounts to like multiple thousand euros of like paid acquisition. So
And what about then? What about
yeah,
then for you have also been at Station, which is a
yeah,
B2B. I would say B2B. I don't know if you would
yeah,
say the same, but at
yeah,
least it's a working tool. It's a SaaS application.
yeah,
Would you still go about, you can say, the demand side, or basically we're talking about the launch of a new product in a new market here? Would you
yeah.
also go in the B2B area with, you can say, the PR and publications and press? Is it a right strategy for both type of businesses, in
No,
your
I think
opinion?
yeah, I think like as you're in yeah, I think like it's more suited for B2C, obviously, because usually on B2C market, like you have your audience is larger than for B2B, and your audience like consumes this kind of main medias. So it helps if you have a lot of media mentions. On the B2B sides, it still helps, but it's less relevant because you can do more targeted action. So
Yeah.
actions. So usually when you have a B2B product, what you're saying is that basically I'm going to have a small amount of clients that going to be high value for me. This is like kind of the like equation for a lot of B2B products. Whereas for B2C usually is that I'm not going to have a few clients. I'm going to have a lot of subscriptors, and I need a lot of them, and then eventually I'll monetize this audience. So when you want to have a lot of subscribers, I think that media mentions helps a lot. When you want to have a few qualified clients, B2B, then you can do more targeted action. You can do account-based marketing. You can like basically target individuals. Uh, this works better than like having media mentions, even if having media mentions can help you and like increases your legitimacy or your social proving to like convert the leads that you're targeted. So it
Yeah.
can be a lubricant. It can help, but it's not as important on the B2B side than on the B2C.
Okay. One of, maybe, I don't know if you have experience in this area, but one of the things that we also, I mean, discussing right now in the growth community or in the marketing space as a general is advertorials, that you can basically buy yourself to get an article in magazines like Forbes or Entrepreneur or one of these very big, I mean, magazines or media outlets out there. And the reason for why people should do that, first is maybe they will get a backlink, but the other one is that they can list it on the website.
Yeah.
Do you believe that it's worth it to kind of get that kind of, you can say, emblem on your site?
So actually, I've never done it, so I can't really give you like worth it, meaning is the ROI good? And so to get to know the ROI, you have to know how much it costs, and I don't really know how much it costs, but I can still answer like in terms of gut feeling. Like I think that so basically you're saying, is it worth it? Meaning that to put, if you want to put it on your website, basically you're using that as a social proof. So basically look at this big name that said good stuff about me, etc., etc. And I think that this kind of reviews or social proofing, it has to be genuine, in my opinion, ideally. So if you pay for social proofing, if you pay for somebody to talk about you or to say good things about you, I think it's less authentic, and I think that people are becoming less and less naive about that. So I would say it's okay to pay for ads because it's an ad and everybody knows it, but but being in a gray zone that it's not really an ad but it's still paid for, etc., etc. I won't recommend it, at least for social proofing. I would recommend it for like simple acquisition. Basically, you just get your name in front of a huge audience. So this would do great. But if you want to use it as a social proof or a testimonial on your website, and this is kind of dishonest, I would say, in my opinion.
Yeah. So this is quite interesting, I guess. And before I kind of jump into the next question, I just want to say hi to the live audience out there. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the live chat here. I'm sure that George will be more than happy to answer your questions. But George, one of the things you just mentioned here was this thing about should you buy yourself social proof really? Is it worth it? And what you are saying here is that people are not that naive anymore. People start to kind of, you can say, see behind, you can say the edges, or see behind your fingers. Basically, that they will see that you are faking it. That's really what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a difference between like lying to people or like faking something, and like trying to hack yourself up or trying to find, I don't know, like uncharted territory, or trying to find new acquisition levers, or trying to be clever about stuff. So this is what we all try to do in growth, basically. Try to be clever, to find new ways to acquire users, etc., etc. But I think there's a difference between doing that and like obviously lying or faking stuff. And I try as much as possible not to lie and not to fake stuff, even though sometimes it's necessary, especially when you start a company. Like you obviously have to make yourself bigger than you are, and you sometimes kind of fake it till you make it. But like doing it on scale, or like spending a lot of money to basically have kind of fake reviews or non-genuine reviews or paid for reviews, I feel that this won't be a really good acquisition level.
Yeah, so that's actually quite interesting, in my opinion. You say this thing that we at the beginning we have to make ourselves bigger.
Yeah,
and I definitely believe that for SaaS companies and platform companies, you have to do that to some degree. What I'm doing here with my own agency, just for you to kind of get a little bit behind the scenes here, is that I actually tried doing that at the beginning. I wanted to say, okay, I'm not just I'm one person. I'm a one-person team here, and I have some partners that I'm working with as well. But otherwise than that, I'm just me. And I really tried to say, okay, I'm more than me. I am I'm a company. I'm not a single person. I'm international. I speak in English. I have all these fancy titles and all of this stuff. But the approach that I'm actually going for now is that I'm saying upfront on the website, "Hi, my name is Nikki. I'm 26. You have probably never hired such a young consultant as I am, but you shouldn't be afraid because I've actually done this and this and this in the past, and I've been working with these and these companies. So I'm actually trying to say upfront, I'm small, but maybe you should hire me anyway." So do you believe that a digital platform company, maybe like Too Good To Go or Station or an other type of platform, could do the same thing that I'm trying to do?
Yeah, actually, I think it's an interesting idea. Like to like base your brand image. So basically, you're talking about the brand, like what image you want to show people to you want to show to the world. And I think like basing your brand image on like authenticity, small scale, like interpersonal relationships, and yeah, on the fact that you're human, that you're small, etc. It can be an interesting branding, obviously, but
Yeah,
yeah, so I won't like dismiss that as being irrelevant, because I think it's really interesting because it's not done a lot actually. So
hmm,
it differentiates you from the rest, and it actually makes your weakness a power. So
yeah,
basically, kind of one of your weakness basically is that you don't have a lot of your experience, that you're young, etc. But one of your strengths is also that even though you're young, you did a lot of stuff and you already had a lot of clients, etc., etc. So that
yeah,
your achievements, when compared to your age, makes you outstanding. And this is basically the story you're going to tell. And I think that it's a good idea, as basically as long as your story is a bit outstanding, like it stands out and it's not the same as everyone's story.
yeah. You need
And
to have some.
yeah, you need to have some like differentiators. So as long as your story is different, as long as your story fits to your personality and you're
Yeah,
capable of like embodying it, I think it's a great brand image. But for
yeah,
example, for other stuff, like I think for companies, it's a bit harder than to doing that, like for like, I don't know, SaaS services. Like, I think that SaaS products are different than like an agency.
yeah,
And I think like, basing your brand image on the fact that you're small, that you're nimble, etc., works better for agencies or for freelancers than for like products, because when you're a product, it's not that convincing that you're small actually, because if you're a product, your purpose is to stop being small. It's to be sold to a lot of people,
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, so for an agency or for a freelancer, you basically have a certain amount of time.
hmm.
So your purpose is not necessarily to get big. Your
No,
purpose can be to increase the quality of your clients, or to increase your hourly rate. Your rate is higher because you're more of an expert, etc., etc., etc. So it can be an added value that you're small. But
yeah.
for a SaaS product, it's not an added value, because if you're small, then you're gonna have fewer updates. The team working on the product is smaller. I see little advantages in being small for a SaaS product.
Yeah, I mean, but actually, one of the things that I'm thinking about is that I'm doing it to make myself more exclusive.
Yeah,
And with a company like, do you know Superhuman, the
yeah.
email client, and with also the new thing that's coming up called Have you heard of that? It's called Very strange name. But I mean, what they are doing is this invite only, also kind of saying, I mean, I don't know if they are saying that they are small, but at least they are saying that they are exclusive.
Yeah.
So I think like the exclusivity is something that you could definitely also bring along in the, you can say, the product world.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think exclusivity works a lot uh, for in terms of go-to-market strategy. So when you have a new product and you want to build up, I don't know, anticipation for this new product, or you want to build the buzz or virality for a new product, exclusivity works a lot. Like doing waiting lists, hyping yourself, being shadow for a lot of times. That works a lot, but the problem is that it's a very short-term strategy. It works only for the first launch, and then you stop being exclusive anymore, and you have to build like real growth, sustainable growth strategies. So I think that in your case, being exclusive can be a sustainable growth strategy. It's like I'm just one person, but I'm very efficient. I have this track record. So if you want to book me, you can, but it's very expensive. It can be a sustainable growth strategy. But for a SaaS product, exclusivity works only like for the first few cohorts of users.
Okay. And we right now we talk about sustainable growth and cohorts of users. So how do you work, you can say, with sustainable growth over the long term, George?
Yeah, so basically like sustainable, like the theory is like pretty easy to understand, but doing it is finding like real acquisition levers is far harder. So basically the theory is that like sustainable growth acquisition, it's basically a lever where like basically you get more than what you spend. So basically, I don't know if you spend money putting billboards on the street, and then it costs you 100K, and then at the end you get like this amount of clients that gave you 200K. Then I guess that you're or 300, obviously. I guess that your growth strategy is sustainable because you have a positive return from your investments. So it's the simple that the cost per acquisition must be like 3 or 4 times lower than the lifetime value of your users. So basically, a sustainable acquisition channel is a channel that's like profitable. So the cost of acquisition is 3 or 4 times lower than your lifetime value first, and then it's deep enough. When you say deep enough, it's just that you can continue spending this much amount of money, and it's still gonna work for like a few months or a few years. So if it's deep and if it's profitable, then it's sustainable. So this is the theory. In practice, it's actually pretty hard because you don't have this amount of, you don't have a lot of levers of of acquisition channels where you have a huge audience that's like really deep, first of all. And then the second of all, you have like this law. I don't know if you heard, I guess you heard of it, like this Andrew Chen law of shitty click-through, which is when an acquisition lever works, a lot of people are going to compete for it. So it's gonna work for a few months or a few years, and then eventually the click-through rates are going to go down and your cost of acquisition is going to go up. So yeah, it's a bit hard because you obviously have to constantly try new things, etc., etc. But now today, like we have the chance of having, like, for example, ad platforms that are really big, like Facebook ads, Google ads, Criteo ads, where like the audience is really, really huge. So to like milk those audiences to the end, it takes a bit of time. So it gives you a bit of peace of mind for a few years, I guess.
So one of the things that we are talking a lot about is what we call traction channels and growth channels. And what we mean with it is, or what we mean by it is that when you begin launching a new product, let's say we have a SaaS platform as well, but for the car manufacturing business or something like that. So a car manufacturing business platform as a service. So the traction channels in this case would be to go to auto manufacturing magazines and forums and conferences and all of these, you can say, not very scalable channels, but where you can basically get the first amount of traction. And then, of course, eventually we have to go into, you can say, the growth channels, which is the channels where you have, you can say, a large volume of users and you have a high probability of making it scale. Such platforms like Google Ads, Facebook Ads, LinkedIn Ads, etc. There have to be a density and a volume in order for it to be a growth channel, really.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really what you also talk about as well, I guess.
Yeah, I've never heard about like tracking channels versus acquisition channels, but I think it's very relevant. Like the acquisition channels of your first cohorts of users, like your first 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 users, the acquisition channel of your first like 1,000 users are not at all the same as your like the next users till 1,000,000. So it's like it's also this thing like do things that don't scale from Paul Graham. Like basically at the beginning, nobody knows you, and you don't want to care. You don't really care about sustainability. You basically care about having as many feedback as possible and iterating on your products as quickly as possible. So basically, I think the first like month, years, I don't know, the first step of a startup before finding product market fit is basically a lot of product, basically, and a lot of product and very few marketing. So in the beginning, the marketing is only about like feeding the product with as many users as possible, so the product can get feedback. So basically, in the beginning, growth doesn't really matter. What matters is like giving your product people, your engineers, as much user as they need, so that they can get relevant and statistically significant feedback. And once they get this feedback loop and they iterate on the product V1, V2, V3, V20, once they arrive at a satisfying product, and how do you know that it's satisfying? It's on the retention curves. Once your retention flattens and you have a product that sticks, then you double down on growth, and then growth becomes important. But at the beginning, it's basically product that's important, and growth or marketing is here only to feed the product with cohorts of users. I don't know if I'm being clear.
No, I completely understand it, but I'm just gonna clarify it a little bit for the audience here. So what you are really saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that before you start, you can say really growing and sending a lot of traffic to your platform, to your product, you have to ensure that your retention curve is flattening. So imagine that at the beginning, so at day one, you have 100% of the users coming into your product is active on your platform. Yes. Over 30 days, will they still be active over 30 days? So that's really what we talk about. And what we need to see here is that we at least need them to flatten somewhere, to stabilize at some point. And when we have that stability in our retention, then we can really start focusing on doubling down on what already works. That's what you're saying as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's, in the growth field or in the startup field, we talk a lot about product market fit. We talk a lot about retention, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes everybody has its own opinion, and it's hard to see through all this amount of info. So basically, I tried in my mind just to get a sense of things. I try to simplify as much as possible. So for me, so my opinion is like finding product market fit is basically having a product where users stick on it. So when you have your retention fixed. So basically, as you said, when you have 100 users, if you find if after 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, you have 30 users and they stay here all the time, then you have a product that sticks for 30% of your user base. And once you have this product that sticks, where you don't lose users anymore, then you have found what they call product market fit. And once you have found product market fit, then you can basically invest on growth, and then marketing and growth becomes important. But I think that a lot of people don't get that like marketing and growth is irrelevant before finding product market fit, and that in the beginning it's all about like product, and just getting feedback. So you don't need. That's why like most startups don't need like marketing guy or growth guys at the beginning. They basically need products and developers, and eventually, that's it. So they need like product designers and developers at the beginning, and then once you have found this product market fit, you'll need more like of marketing people and growth people.
Yes. So what I really hear you say is that you need designers and you need developers, and then you need someone who can create some press at some point, because you still need at least to basically make sure that you get the amount of feedback needed to experiment with it and figure out if your product is sticky enough and if your growth is flattening over a period of time.
Exactly. And so that's why like I think if you work in a very early stage company, if you're employee number 1, number 2, 3, 4, like of the first like 5 or 6 employees, then you can't be only a marketing guy. You have to have multiple skills, because marketing is not really needed at the beginning, as you said. It's needed only to get the cohort of users, to get the necessary amount of feedback. But you need to be good at product at the beginning. You need to be good at customer success, like how to channel this feedback and how to integrate it to the roadmap. So if you're in a very early stage startup, one of the few hires, you can't say that you're only the marketing guy, because it's not that needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. So George, we're about to round off here. So, and just want to say hi to Bulldog. He is writing on Twitch here. I don't know who you are exactly, but feel free to ask any questions to George if you are still listening in here. So, George, so the show of this podcast and of this live show is out of growth. So my question here is, so imagine that you woke up one day and suddenly Too Good To Go were out of growth. What would be some of the first things that you would do to kind of get it started back again?
That's an interesting question. I think that actually it depends. I would look at why is it out of growth? Like, is it on the supply or on the demand side?
Mm-hmm.
Because
what would you do practically?
Yeah. Okay. So practically, I would go on in our AI tool or like our analytics tool, which is either Google Analytics, either. So I would go into our dashboards and see why we are out of growth. Is it that we don't have a lot of active users on the app? So this is the demand side, or that we don't have a lot of meals that are scheduled our interface. So it's on the supply side. Once I have understood if it's supply on demand, for example, if it's demand, if we don't have enough users, I would, I think, down, like I would look at our basically paid acquisition strategy. Like, are we doing the right ads on Apple search ads? Are we doing the right ads on Google Play? These are the app stores, because a lot of like app downloads are driven by the app stores. So do we have like, are we doing a good job on the app stores, either in paid, either in organic? So is our app page good enough? Are our pictures good enough, etc., etc. Organic side. On the paid side, are we doing good ads to the right audience on the right platform? So this is what I would do if the problem was on the demand side.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So I just want to kind of summarize some of the key takeaways, in my opinion, at least from this podcast here. So one of the things that really stood out to me here is that, so if you have a product right now and you are going into a new market, so first, if you have a marketplace like Too Good To Go here, so what George here have really been talking about here is that if you have to ensure that your supply side, that is the volume on the supply side is high enough before you launch into the market and before you kind of getting the demand. When you have the supply, then you can get the demand afterwards. And then another thing that I really want to take away from this is this thing about retention and product market fit. So you really just need someone who can build a great product, good looking, user-friendly product. When you have that, then you need a little, I wouldn't say just a little bit of users, but you need at least some kind of user feedback to some extent to kind of figure out if your product is sticky enough and if the retention curve is flattening over time. And when you have that, then you can double down on growing the business or growing the product and kind of really getting users in. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Cool. So George, how can people learn more about you or kind of follow your journey or maybe ask you questions and maybe follow Too Good To Go?
Sure. So as for Too Good To Go, so we are basically, there's our website, toogoodtogo.fr or .com or a lot of countries. We're in 15 countries. And we also have a presence on social networks, like we're on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We basically give a lot of like anti-food waste tips, how to avoid food waste, etc. It's really good content, so I would so go see it. And on the side, basically, I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, and I have a personal website. So I guess we'll put you the links somewhere.
Yeah, I'll put the links in the show notes. And of course, if you have your mobile with you right now and you don't have Too Good To Go, I really believe that you should try it. I have tried it before, and we got the bakery goods. and it was very delicious and very cheap. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, George.
Thanks a lot.
And take care, everyone. Thank you for listening in today. Have a very great time.